Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Olsek, the administration is considering under FHFA program to have rent control put in place. According to a survey of our nation's economists, more than 8 in 10 of them believe that rent control ordinances would harm both the quality and quantity of affordable housing in areas where it's implemented. American economist Walter Williams once said, short of aerial bombardment, the best way to destroy a city is through rent controls. Would you agree with that?
I would. There's a track record of failure of rent control provisions in states and localities across the United States. So it's not a theoretical issue. This is something that has not worked on the ground.
You know, it's concerning. I think the discussion this morning is quite interesting from the standpoint that Mr. Sherman a minute ago was talking about trying to increase the supply. You've been talking about supply. Mr. Zandi's been talking about supply. And it seems as though the different communities try to constrict the supply through the amount of regulation they put out there. It's been a while, but I may be wrong on this figure, but it seems to me like I saw a figure, or heard a figure in this committee one time that said like 25% of the cost in some communities is rules and regulations compliance. I don't know if it's that great or not, but that's significant. And Mr. Sherman made the point a minute ago about how hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I've got a relative who lives in California, so I know it's extremely high in California to try and build a house or build any sort of commercial building just for the permits and all the other things you have to go through. These are costs that drive the cost of the construction up, which means it has to be recouped through the rents that are charged for the occupants of that building. There's got to be a way to control those and find a better way to do this. Do you not think so?
Everyone who studies this problem comes to the conclusion that an enormous amount of it stems from decisions made at the local level, whether they're land use zoning restrictions or construction codes, a variety of regulatory costs that raise the cost of housing. That has to be part of the solution. This committee, unfortunately, is not in every locality in the United States. And so it always comes up, what can the federal government do? And those tools are far more limited. And I think that's one of the reasons that historically the federal government has always turned to demand subsidies. It's not that hard to do that at the federal level. It's very hard to control these regulatory and land use decisions at the local level.
To take it to the extreme, I have one of my son-in-laws is in the construction business, and part of it is building. He builds hotels, but he's in the business and understands building apartments and hotels and things like that. And he lives in Colorado, and he was telling me about Boulder, which you can't even build a new apartment building in Boulder. You can't build one. So how do you solve the housing process whenever you have a community board there, the city council, that would prohibit any new construction? They don't want people to come. This is crazy. And it's a college town with much, the demand is soaring. It makes no sense. So I think we've got to find a new way to address this from the standpoint of thinking differently about trying to address the problem instead of trying to constrict it and hope it goes away. It doesn't work. Part of the discussion this morning with regards to inflation, and you and I have had this discussion offline and in my small business committee a couple times, and I really appreciate your comments on it, but it looks like inflation is fed by 4 different things: rules and regulations, energy, money supply, and then supply chain employee problems that we've talked about. And one of and much of this can be done with the administration simply without congressional action. When you look at rules and regulations, I think your entity, your association, came up with a figure of $200 billion is what it cost last year for compliance, and it's over another $100 billion this year by this administration just on compliance for new rules and regulations. This is crazy. That has to all be implemented and charged through rents and higher costs to the people who purchase products and services.
That's exactly right. We do keep track of the burden placed on the private sector of every new final regulation in the federal government, and the Biden administration finalized $200 billion of regulatory costs in its first year. That's the highest we've ever seen in our time doing this. It's well over 100 this year, and those are costs that will have to be passed on to consumers and show up as higher prices.
One more quick question, and it seems like we've got the Fed in contradiction to the administration from the standpoint the Fed's trying to constrict your ability, the demand, and on the other side, when you throw millions and trillions of dollars into the economy, you're trying to increase demand and supply. So I've never seen the Fed and the administration at odds like this. Would you like to quick comment on that?
There's nothing the administration's done that has helped the Fed. They could relieve some tariffs, and those are big costs, especially in the construction of homes. If we did a calculation, I'd be happy to get to you. They could do something with the regulatory costs. That they could not forgive the student loans, which is basically a $420 billion spending program. There's nothing about what the administration has done that is aiding and abetting the Fed's efforts to fight inflation.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My time's up.
Thank you very much. You know, you just hit upon an issue that I think we could work together on, and that is reducing the costs at the local levels for permitting, one-stop shops. And in the Build Back Better, we had appropriations in there for those who deal with the zoning problems in producing affordable
There's a lot
housing.
of common ground, Madam Chair.
I think we can work together on that. Thank you. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, who is also the chair of the subcommittee